I do not know Sir Willem Hornsby. I see him in front of me, so you say, but I do not know of his name, nor am I aware of his exploits. Why should I trust that he is the man you say he is? Why should I trust that the man you say he is even exists? I had never heard of this knight, whom you claim is famous and beloved. He could be a common man for all I know, wrapped in a knight's cloak and trained to play the part. Lord Barnum hadn't seemed to snap. If anything, he seemed calmer now. Perhaps Sir Willem had misjudged him. My lord, a voice came from behind Sir Willem. It was one of the guards. He straightened his body, put his spear to his side, and bowed his head slightly. May I speak, my lord? Go on. I have heard of Sir Willem Hornsby, slayer of the Bordeaux Skjorg and liberator of Dunford Abbey. My cousin was a monk at Dunford. He wrote to me often before the abbey was taken over by the Moradins and, well, whatever else was there. And then he didn't. For a year he didn't write me. I figured him dead. The week after they were liberated, I received a letter. He described the torture and the agony he had been through. Then he praised his liberator, Sir Willem Hornsby. Yes, said the Lord, that is very touching. What a great story. However, we do not know if this is him. My lord, my cousin Tennier described the knight as wearing a black cloak with a tree-shaped bronze brooch. Sir Willem smiled. Good deeds did pay off, it seemed. This was a first. Looking alone brought on a headache. He cursed himself for accepting this quest. While on his way home from his last job, breaking up a brief scuffle between a landlord and their tenant near Effington, he'd seen a courier galloping toward him on the cobbled road. He'd recognized the man as soon as he saw him, bouncing in his saddle, and his first reaction was to pull his reins and press his boots into his old horse's side to turn him in the other direction. He was so close to Horntree, his home, so close to Bliss and his brothers, so close to fishing, late night singing and drinking with his oldest friends, and to settling down by a cozy fire to get the rest that had evaded him for so many years. Sir Willem had slapped his reins hard and pushed his horse to the brink of exhaustion, avoiding this courier. He did not intend to let him delay his return to Horntree any longer. This was the same man who delivered him the news of his last quest, and that awful one with the Skjorg that had brought him so much fame. The green of grass rolling up the hills, the green of lily pads that carpeted an eastern shore, and even the green of algae clinging to jagged coastal rocks. Then the breeze brushed his cheek, carrying a cool mist, and in that moment he smiled, the kind of closed-eyed smile one made after sinking their teeth into a savory cut of meat or a sweet apple pastry. The merchant ship lolled and bobbed under his feet as they sailed into calmer waters, so that a smile like this could be enjoyed and not thrown off balance by aggressive waves. When he was ready to open his eyes, he did so to the discovery of a new color on the horizon. He saw the pale brown of stiff wooden docks on the port ahead, stretching out into the bay like the fingers of a giant hand. "Here she is, get ready to dock," yelled the ship's captain. Will you be wanting a guide, sir?" he asked, climbing down the stairs from the quarterdeck. "Pastora ain't big, but she'll suck you in if you let her." Sir Willem took his hands from the taffrail and turned to face the captain. His black cloak rose and waved in the coastal wind, hanging on by the tree-shaped bronze brooch at his collar. "No thank you, Captain. I can find my own way. And if not, I'll be just as happy to get lost." After a hard week of training at basic training, we would all sit down there, just read it together, and I'd get feedback, and people would tell me they love this and they love that, and I think that was huge for me, being there with no, outside, no entertainment. We had, we were all trying to remember song lyrics so that we could sing them, and they were just, we couldn't think of any song lyrics, crazy. But that, in my military career, was the most influential, just having people who, cared enough to tell me this sucks, or this is great, and just to sit there and listen. I think that the brotherhood aspect really influenced or helped my writing a lot. I think writing this book helped me to think about Horntree and to realize kind of how much of my childhood neighborhood Horntree is. And yeah, I think it just writing this tied up a lot of like loose ends that I was confused about when writing the main series. Yeah. So I took a lot of influence from The Hobbit, and then George R. R. Martin, who wrote the Game of Thrones series. He has a book called A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, which is about an errant knight. So Sir Willem is kind of based on that knight a little bit. So I wrote stories with my neighbor a lot when I was growing up. It was like fan fiction of Percy Jackson mostly. And then as soon as I left for basic training to go to Georgia, I wrote a little poem in my phone, and that poem kind of became the series that this is kind of a prequel to. So yeah, I would write it during basic training and have little readings with all my friends at the end of the week, my new chapters, and he remembers. I didn't even know anything about like Iowa City's literary history or anything like that until I decided to become a writer. When I got back, it just seemed like all of a sudden Iowa City is like the perfect place for me, and I never knew it. Like all of a sudden it was like a UNESCO City of Literature, and it never was when I was growing up, you know? At least not that I knew of. And yeah, so it's just kind of a perfect, yeah, I think that has influenced me a lot, and I'm like starstruck by all of my teachers, and any like mention of the writer's workshop, I'm like, what? You know, I just think it's really cool to be around all of that, and it makes what you're doing feel more important, and not like I'm scribbling, you know, crazy names like Yevnir to myself. I think I need to, because now that I'm working on an audiobook with a voice actor, and I'm wishing I would have read it aloud to myself, because some things I'm like, oh, that looks so beautiful written, but it just doesn't, you know, when you actually speak it, it's not as, you know, smooth or whatever. In terms of a writing coach, no, but my teachers are really, really great with helping me with chapters, and my classmates, some of whom are here, helped me workshop the first chapter of this book. So yeah, they're my workshops are my writing, my classmates are my writing coaches, if I have any. It was kind of start to finish, but for my main like book series, and I think in general when I write, I usually have like an image that tends to be the end of the story, and then I kind of am interested in that, and then I try to fill in the blanks as to what got these characters there. First book of that, and I of course couldn't finish it, so I started to write this instead, as a procrastination adventure.
Well, that's a very productive one.
Yeah.